Okay, well, good evening to everybody. So, yeah, well, thank you. I see you smile, so that's good. What we're going to do today is move on to our second session. Last week, as you recall, we did an entire book, the book of Ecclesiastes, one of the more difficult books in the uh, Old Testament to read because of the fact that it seems to be a downer to tell us that life has no particular meaning to a relationship with God on a personal level, and then secondly to eternity. Consequently, it's just like a secular thing that you would have when you see on all these, um, you know, advertisements for books and stuff like that on leadership. There are approximately about 10,000 books on leadership, they say, that are published every year. Everybody who's a leader wants to show you how they were a leader, and so that was Ecclesiastes. But now what we're going to do, and let me give you the conclusion. The reason why we did that was we started off our session with taking a look at a perspective that does not have what the rest of the material that we're going to cover does have. In other words, it's like the deep, dark question mark to which the rest of the Bible is the answer. Because Ecclesiastes says, vanity of vanities, everything is vanity, nothing makes sense. So why should we be, so he said the function in life is just to be good, um, enjoy yourself, eat, drink, and be merry, find some work to do, and realize that there are seasons, and one of the final season for us is going to be death. And once we die, then it's over, and that's that. So what we're going to do tonight, it's if you go to your book, you can pick up this week 2. It's up in the upper right-hand corner. See, it says week 2, page 1, and it says discussion openers for Isaiah 1 to 56. So the first session that we did was Ecclesiastes, and now we're on the second section. When you got your material, you got, I believe, paper clips, that divided these sessions. Am I correct? Okay, and these sessions there's 11 of them. Now, the difficulty is that we are going to have only 8 sessions together. So what I'm going to do is to continue to work on this material. That last week we covered a whole book, and today we're going to cover a good part of Isaiah up to chapter 56. And you can see that I have, if you're all with me now, and you might have a pencil handy. Do you have a pencil or a pen handy? Oh, okay, you do. Because what I did is I put down some notations. You see where it says discussion openers for Isaiah 1 to 56? And I have 5 statements there. What I did was I gave each statement a letter. For example, identify any passage or sections you may have heard before in our study. That's number 1. So I put down the letter B there, which means that we have heard this before. You'll find some material here that is familiar to us. The second statement on this unit, Isaiah 1 to 56, says, how do these passages help us to understand the qualities of Jesus, even though these passages are half a millennium before Jesus? So I put down a J. So far we got some things that are a B and some things that are J. What I'm going to do is when we get into the text, I'm going to put those down on the left-hand side as kind of just an indicator to us. Then the next thing is, what are some of the indicators that these passages have some perhaps unconscious or conscious understanding that there is a heaven, and we shall all be invited to there for eternity? So I gave that an H, of course. So we've got B for something we've heard before, J for Jesus, that seems like, and then H for heaven. Then it says, think over and list some of the opposites in these passages. In other words, there are places for failure. That is personnel or events that are at conflict with each other. So I put down C for that conflict. So anyway, if I'm making sense for you, what I'm going to do now is start to get into the text. And I will have a pencil handy, and I will put these things on the left-hand column. So first, I'm going to turn over that initial page, and we get on the back, it says page 2, week 2, page 2. It says how to read Isaiah. Now, usually I don't read these for you because this is something you can read at home, well, of course you're there now, but you can read at home to summarize what we did in our discussion. But I think I would like to read this part of this for you, because what it does is it outlines what we're going to touch down in the book of Isaiah. So I said, since this is a review of one of the longest and most beautiful in terms of poetry and heightened connection between God and his people, texts of the Old Testament, it will be quite a literary journey for us. It will be. This is considered to be one of the great books of religious history or insight into in the world. You might take, what would be something like that in the New Testament, perhaps the Gospel of John would be something that universally people would recognize as a major religious topic. I says, but the topic of our entire program is to see how the peoples of the Bible came to understand the wonder of eternal life, of heaven, and of our invitation to everlasting life. We'll focus just on passages or phrases that point us in the above direction. So there you have it. This is the purpose of our program as we begin, because eventually what we're going to do is get to the New Testament, and then eventually what we're going to do is to get to the major questions, like what is heaven like? What is purgatory like? What is hell like? What is the evidence we have of heaven? What are the signs of heaven in today's culture? So we have all kind of those quasi-theological themes for us, but we can't get to that right away. We're going to take what happens to us in the Bible, and I'm going to start with the Old Testament, and starting with the book of Isaiah. Because what he does is he has a considerable amount of material here that is a hint to something of the divine, also a hint to the not only just to the divine, but to the heaven. So he says, and I'll continue to read here. He says, for example, chapter 9 opens with a passage about darkness and light that the church uses for a reading on Christmas Eve. So once you hear that, you're going to say, oh, I heard that before. So we can put a B in the column, next to it. Just, the reason is because when we get done with all this, we'll see a whole number of things that we recognize that we knew before, and other things that we'll recognize that were part of Jesus, and other things that we'll recognize in life eternal. So then we give a series of titles that could be applied to Jesus. And since Jesus is eternal, we're given a glimpse of eternity, not just a single historical moment. So that's why we can put down heaven there. Because if something is divine, it means that it is a way beyond temporal moments, like a calendar. And so it is eternal. And so chapter 11 continues, gives us through David an anticipation of the Messiah to come. Chapter 26 calls the Lord God, Yahweh, eternal rock. Chapter 35 is placed in here, and etc. So you can continue to read that. It would be very helpful for you as we get into this. It's kind of like a summary then at the end of our work here. If you have some time during the week, you could go back and look over this and say, oh yeah, I know what we're talking about there. Okay, we are admitting people here to our program. Good to see you. And now what we're doing is we're turning to the next page, which would be page 3. It doesn't have it on the right here, but you can see it has Isaiah chapter 6. You see how that goes? Isaiah chapter 6. Now, what we did was we put these biblical things into columns. So this would be a column, and then this would be a column, so that we didn't take up a whole page, just to have one particular text like this. Then there are some of the pages that are like this, they go lengthwise. So this is these are from the New American Bible, and let's start to read. Now this the book starts in the year 742 BC, before Christ. There are 3 books in the book of Isaiah. The first book is Isaiah of Jerusalem. That's who would be like the authentic historical figure, Isaiah. There are 2 other books, though. The next one goes from chapter 40 to chapter 55, and we don't know who wrote that. It is not Isaiah of Jerusalem. Isaiah of Jerusalem would have to be 200 years old if we had these 3 books put together. Consequently, in the second book, we get the people of God are in Babylon. And then in the third book, and we don't know the author of this by name or but it's kind of what happens after coming back from Babylon. So if I'm making some sense to you, There's one long book that covers 200 years, and it obviously does not have a single author, but has several authors. This is not unusual in those days to take and put your writing down and then attribute it to somebody who's famous. So what they did was they took the book of Isaiah and said, well, yes, but the people of God continued, so I'm going to tell you about that. So whoever wrote the second part of the second book is telling us about how they went off to Babylon. Now, what happens in this whole book of Isaiah are two distinct down times. The first one is where the great kingdom of Assyria, which is up in present-day Turkey, comes down the coastline past Syria and Lebanon into Israel as we know it, and they take over. Well, that's terrible because it kind of interferes with the people in the promised land. The second thing is that the people in the promised land, they misbehave and they start to fit in with the Assyrians and take their religion, gods, and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's not good. So what happens there is God sends them off for like 75 years to live in Babylon. And so that, is a downer. So you have two great downers in this whole time. We have God's people, who have come. Their king has been David. That was like 950 before Christ. Now we are in the 700s before Christ. And we have this invasion by the Assyrians. And then we will get in the late 500s, like 587, we will get the capture of the people of God in Jerusalem, especially, and taken off to Babylon. And then when we get to book 3 of Isaiah, we will get to when they return, which is in the 530s or so. So let's start to read here. It says, in the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on high on a lofty throne with a train of his garment filling the temple. Well, I'm going to put an H next to that because remember, we're going to try to identify these things, and it will help us later on to see what kind of text we have. So this is H. Why do I say that? Well, because this is not a dream. He doesn't say, well, I had a dream like Joseph did, for Mary, or for Joseph in Egypt had dreams and stuff. No, this is not a dream. This is a vision. So you can see, and I double underline that where it says, I saw the Lord. The Lord, in capital letters there. Anytime you have the Lord, you're talking about Yahweh. That is the Father of the, in the Father, Son, and Spirit. So that is Yahweh. They don't know about the Son and Spirit yet, but they know about Yahweh. So he says, I saw the Lord seated on a high and lofty throne with a train of his garment. This is very similar to what we find in the prophet Daniel. He too has a vision. And what happens in the vision is that he sees, and that's why I'm telling you, this is not a dream. What he sees is heaven itself. So that's why I've given an H there. So then let's continue. The seraphim I put down there, the burning ones, they kind of kept the fires going, were stationed above. Each of them had 6 wings. So these are angelic creatures. With 2 of them, they cover their face. With the next, they cover their private parts. And with the next 2, they could fly. And so they're conscientious about that. They always use euphemism where they're going to talk about the whole body. I just have to mention that to you because we want to be authentic. So you can see, I even wrote that notes there for you. You're saying to yourself, he wrote notes for us? What a nice person he is. He took care of all that. You don't have to be writing all kind of stuff all over the place because I've written out a lot of stuff for you already. Because I know how that goes. I want you to, kind of let's immerse ourselves and commune with our spirit and the text and not worry about the notes. So you can see I say, well, the veil is for reverence, the wings. They, because God is the Holy One. Their feet for modesty, they cover themselves. And then their wings because of the fact they're going to be able to fly. And so one cries out to the other, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Now, what do you think about that? Isn't that something that we would have heard ourselves before? All you have to do is go to Mass someday and after the offertory or beginning, what do we say? Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts. So let me find a pen here. My faithful colleague, Stephanie, is with us this evening. She presses all the buttons and things like that because you don't think I can do this stuff alone, do you? No, that doesn't work that way. So I'm going to put down a B there because it says before. This is something I would have known that happened before. In other words, we hear that every time we go to Mass, holy, holy. Where's that come from? Well, it comes right here from Isaiah. So then it says, all the earth is filled with his glory. And then now we're only going to read the section, the lines that are underlined. We're not going to read the whole thing. Otherwise, we'd be reading 56 chapters. We're not going to do that. We're just going to read the lines that are underlined. It says, then I said, this is Isaiah talking, I am doomed. I'm a man of unclean lips, living among people of unclean lips. And I've seen the Lord of hosts. In other words, you've got God up here and you got lowly Isaiah down here. He says, I can never match the spirituality of heaven. So I'm woe is me. And so this reminds me of St. Peter. Remember when Jesus was walking in the middle of the night across the Lake Galilee, and a storm came up and the boat was out there, and they look and they think they're going to be sinking. So they're crying out for Jesus, and he comes walking across the water. And in doing so, he says to Peter, why don't you come with me? So Peter gets out of the boat, and he doesn't have enough faith. And so what happens? Kerplunk, he goes right down in the drink. And so they have to pull him back up out and put him in the boat. And then Jesus gets in the boat. And so what does he say to Jesus? Oh, Lord, get away from me. I am a sinful man, because of the fact that, there's so much distance between you and me. So that's kind of like a before thing, but I'm not going to push that. Then the seraphim comes out with an ember. An ember is like coke, which is compressed coal. And it burns through the night, and it's red hot. And he takes that with some tongs, and he takes it, then he applies it to Isaiah's lips. In other words, this is kind of a symbol for us, a representation of the cleansing. It's like a baptismal rite, but it's done with fire. And so what happens here is that we see, he says now, verse 7, that has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin is purged. So isn't that beautiful for us? Now I put in this strange note there. If you're ever at a Mass with a bishop, the deacon will go over to read the gospel passage. And in doing so, he will finish reading the gospel, and he will hold the book open, and he will bring it back to the bishop and put it forward, and the bishop will then kiss it. You say, well, that doesn't come from this, does it? Well, I think it does. By the way, we're celebrating in Illinois, as you know, you've heard the word, that a former bishop on the south side of Chicago then became Archbishop eventually of Atlanta. Then the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. is now going to be made a cardinal. So a black gentleman, Wilton Gregory, a friend of mine, because I was on the south side of Chicago at that time too. So anyway, and then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, who shall I send? And he says, here I am, here I am. Well, of course, we've heard that before too, haven't we? This is one of our favorite hymns, is it not? Here I am, Lord. So anyway, we continue, and now we're going to go up to the right-hand side. And what's happening with the right-hand side is we have some conflict, because we have people that are not following the directions of the Lord. So it says, listen carefully, listen intently. Not that they understand, it's to listen, but you're not going to hear anything because of the fact that you people are corrupt. He says, make the heart of these people sluggish. Why would he do that? Well, because they are sluggish. They have eyes, but they can't see. They have ears, but they can't hear. And so their heart is not able to understand. See, they haven't been inspirited. They don't have the Holy Spirit as part of their makeup. So then the verse 11, how long, O Lord, I asked, how long is this going to be? Well, the Assyrians are going to be in this area in conquest of the Jewish people for some time, a century or so at least. And then the Babylonians are going to come in. Meanwhile, the Egyptians are coming in from the south. And eventually the Babylonians are coming in, and then the Persians are going to come in. So afterwards, get rid of the Babylonians. So we're dealing with conflict all over the place in these various areas around the Mideast. So this would be present-day Iraq, Iran, Syria, and down into Egypt. So they say, how long are we going to be suffering like this, Lord? And he says, until the cities are desolate without inhabitants, houses without people, the land is a desolate waste. See, I put down later, this will be 70 years, and that's when we have the Babylonian captivity. So this is the first of the two times that we're going to have collapse. And so anyway, and the indication we have in most of the language, houses without people, and the land is a desolate waste. So verse 12 says that, great is the desolation in the midst of the land. Now, when they say in the midst of the land, it doesn't mean that Jerusalem is in the center of Israel. It means Jerusalem is in center of the world and the center of the universe. It is the belly button, the navel of the universe, around which it brings forth life. And so this is a very significant statement about what Jerusalem is. It is the very foundation, the axle upon which everything else spins. And so that, anyway, we have that. Now, in the midst of this desolation, now so far, what have we covered? We've covered that we have Isaiah coming before the Lord, calling him holy, holy, holy. That's what he hears. And then we find out that the people of God are not responding. And so I'm going to turn the page now. That was page 3. So over on the back side, we have page 4. And you'll notice with page 4, it's one of these column type things. See, and so this is very helpful for us. Instead of just Xeroxing these right out of the Bible, then we'd have pages that we'd have a book that thick with all the pages. So, but I organize these just so we'd have these particular verses open for us. And now here's what we are at. We are in chapter 9. See up on the top there, it says chapter 9. Quite a bit of writing here, isn't there? It says the people who walk in darkness have seen a great light. Now, I don't know if that strikes you as familiar or not. If you ever go to the midnight mass for Christmas, this is the first reading that we have. People who walked in darkness have seen a great light. What are they talking about? In the map of Israel, which is a rectangular country, very far in the north, right on the coastline by Mount Carmel, are 2 of the tribes, Zebulun and Naphtali. And they are walking in darkness. What is the darkness? The Assyrians. I keep mentioning that they have taken over the land. And so it says now that there's going to be a deliverance, that the people who are walking in darkness have seen a great light. Now, what I've done is I've written some notes here. One is Jesus begins his ministry in chapter 4:15, and that this is a hint of the beginning of Jesus' ministry in Matthew's gospel, that they've walked in darkness and they've seen a great light. And we use that text in the midnight mass. There are 85 times in the New Testament that Isaiah is quoted. I'm talking about the entire New Testament. 85 times we have Isaiah mentioned. 45 of those times are in our masses, usually the Sunday Mass in Advent and the Sunday Mass in Lent, and then the daily Mass in Lent and the daily Mass in Advent. And then throughout the rest of the year, we've had some readings from Isaiah just in the past couple of weeks on the daily Mass. It says, those who have lived in a land of gloom, a light has shone, and you have brought them abundant joy. Now, this is characteristic of heaven. So the first thing I did was I put down a letter B there, because we've heard this before, because we went to Christmas Mass sometime in our past. Okay, so I'm saying that we've heard that. And I'm also going to put down there H for heaven. Why do you say, what is that talking about heaven? Well, these 2 symbols that we get here, light and joy, are indications of what heaven is all about. In heaven, we have the light that we need to have to be able to see clearly and to be able to be with the Lord. And then joy is the overreigning emotion and feeling, and great rejoicing. You see, it says they rejoice you as a people at harvest. See, nature is preparing us for the divine. In other words, when you have a seed that goes into the ground, as Jesus will say in John chapter 12, it remains just a seed. But if it grows, then it becomes a flower. So what we're having here is that whenever they talk about the symbols of land and things like that, they're getting us ready for heaven. He says, so the yoke that burdens them and the pole on their shoulder is taken away. Then down in verse 4, it says, mine eyes have seen the glory. That's my note there, because it's from the famous battle hymn of the Republic that we have in the Civil War. Every boot that trampled in battle, every cloak rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. And then peace will prevail. Now see if this strikes you as something. Verse 5, a child is born to us, a son is given to us, and upon his shoulder dominion rests. Now those are 2 quotes. one from later Isaiah, and one from Daniel. The one from later Isaiah, put down Isaiah 7:14. This is chapter 9. So we have heard in Isaiah 7:14. I didn't print out the whole page just for one verse. Well, here we have it. It says, "The son is born to us." Remember, it says, "A virgin shall conceive and bear a child, and they shall name him Emmanuel." Remember that from their Christmas, times. Well, that's in Isaiah. The other thing is from Daniel, Daniel 7:14. Daniel has a vision where God is in the heavenly kingdom, and the Son of Man comes before him, and the Ancient One, that's the Father, God the Father, gives the Son of Man, who is Jesus, dominion over the whole of creation. So that's what the indication of that now is for Isaiah. This precedes Daniel. "Then they shall name him Wonder Counselor, God Hero, Father forever, Prince of Peace. His dominion is vast and forever peaceful. He's upon David's throne, and he gives us judgment and justice." I'm telling you, this passage is just loaded with stuff, is it not? Because what we have here, first of all, it's Jesus. How about the birth of Jesus? In who's above Jesus? All the angels. What are they singing? A peace upon earth, peace and goodwill. So Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and he's the model of power, and he's on David's throne. So this is both H for heaven, because his dominion is vast. See, what they're talking about, that is not just, the country, not just the globe, not just the universe, but heaven itself. So that's the dominion of Jesus. He's given the dominion, which is to reign over eternity. So I put a J there, and I also put an H on the side too, because of the fact that it talks about heaven. How can you have the dominion that is vast, because it's a symbol for heavenly, without mentioning heaven? So we do that. I hope I'm making some sense to you there. So you can see what I'm doing is, the reason we're taking these texts instead of getting right to heaven as our topic is because of the fact that we have all these hints of the fact that there is a Lord God above us, and that we have a final kind of assimilation into heaven. And heaven is far beyond us in scope and in reality. And so there are hints. All these things are hints. They're not coming right out. This is not a book about Jesus, is it? It's a foretelling of Jesus. It's not a book about heaven, is it? But it's a foretelling of heaven. So that's what we're looking for, is texts in the Jewish scriptures that are telling us that, yes, there will be a heaven and there will be a Savior. And so that's why I'm going into this kind of a pattern for it. And what we have here is a collapse. I put down the letter C at the bottom of the page there, the fall of the northern kingdom. Let's go up to the upper right-hand side. You'll see what I mean. I'll just say this one more time. You got to think of the Middle East. This is a hand map. There's a great big huge country up there called Turkey now. It's great big huge land, and that's run by the Assyrians. Hittites are in there too, but I don't want to get way off. We got so many different tribes up there, but the Assyrians. And notice on top I put there, yes, overcome by Assyrians. And so what the Assyrians do is they take that area up there and they start coming down into Israel, which is along the coastline. And it's the coastline in between Assyria all the way down to Egypt. And so, across the Sinai. So what you get there is Israel's right in the middle. So the people of God now are being attacked by the Assyrians. And it says, Ephraim and those who dwell in Samaria, bricks have fallen, but we'll build it. Sycamores have been felled, but we'll build it up. We'll replace them with cedars. It says, verse 11, Aram from the east and Philistines from the west. That'd be like present-day Syria. And what do? They come and they attack the people, and they take over their culture. This is very current to our modern day and age. We are living in a more and more secular world in the good old United States, in which the kind of acceptance of religiosity and spirituality was very open, but now is finding it a difficulty. So anyway, let's look. Oh, look at what I did here. 12 and 13. Look at 13. The Lord cuts off from Israel head and tail. Oh my. 4. The prophet who teaches falsehood is the tail. Oh no. Those who lead the people lead them astray. Oh no. Those who are led are swallowed up. Oh no. Oh, look at that. I wrote that on the side for you there. Oh my. That's all you can say, you know. Here the Lord God brings a people to the kingdom, you know, to the promised land, and what happens? You know, they turn around and say, you know, I like those Assyrians better. So anyway, now when the Assyrians came in, by the way, they brought with them 5 gods. This is mentioned in the scriptures. 5 gods. How do I know that? Well, Jesus goes through Samaria, okay, the middle part of Israel, and he comes across a woman, and the woman is thirsty, coming to the water. Jesus says, I have a water. What's the background to this woman? She says she had 5, Jesus knows she has 5 husbands. What does that 5 stand for? The woman of Samaria stands for the people of Samaria who have worshiped these 5 gods. They're all pagan gods. One of them is Moloch. They build these great big huge clay ovens, and then they throw in the oldest child. So it's a brutal kind of these are gods of fertility and gods of grain and good weather and other type things. And they take over the people there. So this woman who's had 5 husbands is like the people of Samaria marrying 5 of these gods, because that's what happens when you are in a nuptial relationship with these gods. Consequently, that's how I know that's 5 there. Its wickedness burns like fire. Oh my. Well, enough of that. Why do I put all that in there? Well, because of the fact that we have to know that the goodness of the Lord's appearance is going to come into this maelstrom. Now I'm going to go to the next page, which is labeled page 5. You have that, this page. And I'm going to go to chapter 11. So we just did chapter 9, and now we're going to do chapter 11. These are the passages that I've chosen for you that have an indication of something about the heavenly, the divine, perhaps Jesus. So let's take a look at this. A shoot shall sprout from the stump of Jesse. You remember Jesse, the father of David. You know what it is to when I was in college, we worked on a farm there too, to supply food for our place up in Canada with the Carmelites. Anyway, when you cut down a tree, you cut it flat to the ground like this, and you just leave the tree stump there. Later on, you get your John Deere to come out with some hooks, and they pull it up out of the ground. So this flat piece of the bottom of the tree, and there's a sprout that came up in the middle of that, and that was David, King David. From the stump of Jesse shall come King David. So, and then it says, from that roots shall blossom, the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. This is King David. So look at there, we have something of the Lord. So that's, I put that down. It says, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, of counsel and strength, a spirit of knowledge and a fear of the Lord. These are the traditional gifts of the Spirit. When we have a confirmation here with our younger people, these are the type things we say that's given to them. The Holy Spirit is given to them. So I put a J there saying, this is the Jesus stuff. This is who Jesus is. He is the wise one. He is the counselor. He has knowledge of the Lord. So these are traditional gifts of the Spirit. Then down at the bottom of the page, you can see, he shall strike the ruthless with the rod of his mouth. So what's going to happen is a Savior is going to come, and he's going to shut up the people of their ignorance. And it says, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. So that's how powerful he is. Justice will be the band around his waist. This is like the priests in those days, they wore that, the priests of the temple. It's a proper dress. It means integrity. Then I'm going to go up to the right-hand side. Well, the bottom line on the left-hand side, then the wolf shall be a guest of the Lamb. Now this perhaps you have heard before. The painters of the Middle Ages love this scene. Let's see if we can have it. We have it in our liturgy. It is the sign of ultimate peace. Look at all these opposites that are together now. The wolf and the lamb. Usually the wolf is, looks upon the lamb and says lunch. And so now what we have is the lamb and the wolf walking along together. The leopard shall lie down with the young goat. See, the goat would be an afternoon snack. The calf and the young lion shall browse together. Well, that'd be supper, and you invite your friends over. With a little child to guide them. oh my goodness, is this something or not? Who is going to be the ultimate peace bringer, even though it's done with destruction of everything? Jesus, the Lord, he brings the ultimate peace into our hearts. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their younger shall lay down. The lion shall eat hay like the ox. The baby shall play by the viper's den. One time in our farm up in Canada, we pulled up one of those tree stumps. Are you ready for this? Underneath, a mother snake had given birth to, I'm going to say, 20 little snakes. And so it was this ball of snakes. They were all together in a ball, and they were all glistening, which meant they just came out of the mother. And so they're all glistening like this, and they're all like that, stuff like that. So what did we do? We didn't pet them, and talk to them and say, hey, this is our land and stuff like that. Go to some other farm. No, we just got out of there. Mother snakes are not friendly. So anyway, enough of that. So then let's go to verse 9. They shall not harm or destroy on all my holy mountain. Now this holy mountain is Jerusalem itself, and on top of Jerusalem is the high point of Jerusalem, is a plateau, and on that the Jews are going to build a temple. So what you have is, if you want to go to God, to meet with God in the Jewish way of doing things, you went up to Jerusalem, you sang songs, psalms all the way up, and you got to the top, came in the gate, and then you walked over to the temple area. You see picture this now of the bottom wall, the Wailing Wall. Well, on top of that, the plateau, and that's where the temple was. So here we have, if you want to meet God, you go to the temple. What is it now after the temple has been destroyed? Where should we go to meet God? Heaven. So there you had a temple was a place. Now we go to heaven. So I put down an H there for that. Okay, and now I've finished there from chapter 11, 1 to 9. I found out it has something about Jesus. It has something about that we've been there before. We've heard this text in our liturgy, especially at the Easter time. And then, because that's what Jesus brings in, we have the temple, which is the heavenly kingdom. Now I'm going to turn on the backside. And on the backside, you'll find the top left-hand part is chapter 25. We're not going to pay attention to that. See where it says chapter 26? Is on the backside.
I don't have mine.
Just right there. Okay. Everybody all set?
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 26, verses 1 to 10. The theme is put in there by the modern printer. Judah's praise and prayer for deliverance. On that day, whoa, we got to stop there. Anytime you hear that kind of a phrase, on that day, you're talking about a sacred time. It's not just on Thursday afternoon at 2:30. We're talking about on that day. It's the day of deliverance and redemption. We might say on that day, Jesus will be crucified. On that day, Jesus will rise from the dead. On that day, Jesus will give his Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to his disciples at Pentecost. On that day, Jesus will ascend to heaven. So that day becomes not a 24-hour time slot, but becomes the sacred time. It's so then, and so I put a J there. That refers to Jesus. And he says we have a strong city. A righteous nation may come to us, one that keeps the faith. We will be in a timeless existence because we put our trust in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord is an eternal rock. See, this is what we're looking for, we're looking for ways in which they expressed, unknown to them, that these are preparations for us, for Jesus and for the heavenly kingdom. They did not believe at this stage in their development. The Jews did not believe in an afterlife. You might, if you did live, you went to Sheol, which is a dark and dreary place underneath the earth, something like the Walking Dead. And I'm serious, no joy there. But it's not punishment. You just exist. And so, but here he says, we will trust in the Lord forever. See how I underline that twice? Forever. You can't have a forever that goes out of existence, can you? Let me go over that again. You can't say it's going to last forever up until it ends. No, the very meaning of ever, forever is it never ends. And so he says, my Lord is like an eternal rock. Remember in Matthew chapter 60, Jesus said, as he gives the authority to his apostles, what does he do? He says to Peter, "You are the rock on which I build the church." So when Jesus is saying that, he's referring back to this Isaiah text where the Savior with us is going to be an eternal rock. And so when it says that Peter is the rock, it means that the church is going to last forever. How do we know that? Because the last verse of Matthew's gospel, Matthew 28, 18 to 20, is precisely this. All authority has been given to me. I give it now to you. Baptize them. Teach them to obey everything I have told you. And I will be with you to the end of time. I will be with you forever. And notice this too, I put up there on the right-hand side. He humbles those who dwell on high. The lofty city he brings it down to the ground. Interesting. I put there, you can see the Magnificat. Remember Mary's song? Elizabeth says to her, "Oh, how blessed I am that you are here." And Mary says, "My soul magnifies the Lord." Magnifies, that's why we call it the Magnificat. Now, some people think, well, Mary just is making up stuff, saying a nice prayer, like, let's have a prayer before lunch or something. I'm making fun of it because it's one of the most beautiful. And in the office of the church, by the way, it is read every single day. So every single day around the world, that Magnificat is being offered forever. And what happens is in that Magnificat is that the high and mighty are brought down low, and the low and seemingly impoverished, like Mary, will reign. So what we're dealing with here is in Mary, like the other women of her little town, when they went out to get water at the well, or they went out to work in the fields to bring in the grains, or they did the sewing or the preparing of the household, or doing all the things that were important those days to live. In those days, they would sing psalms, and these psalms would be refrains of messages. And so when Mary sings the Magnificat, "My soul magnifies the Lord," scholars have shown that there are 22 different Old Testament references, 22 of them, Old Testament references. In other words, that what Mary is saying is a phrase from Habakkuk, from Psalm so-and-so, from Psalm so-and-so, from Isaiah, So all these things are blended together. So what is one of the tasks of a woman in those days? To weave a cloth, see? So here's a spirituality moment for you. What Mary does is she weaves together in the Magnificat all these ancient traditions into one song. Then she is weaving in her body at the same time all the tendrils and neural connections and all the other type things of a child. So she's weaving together this beautiful song, and she's weaving together this child. And so these are part of the Magnificat kind of things for us that are really extraordinarily beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's fantastic. Now, verse 7 says, "The way of the just is smooth." That's going to be Isaiah 35. And then he says, "Your name and your memory are the desire of our souls. My soul yearns for you at night. My spirit within me seeks you at dawn." I put down there mystical parentheses around the well-lived life. In other words, here's your life. I think of you on rising in the morning, and I think of you of going to bed at night. I rise in the morning. Now, if you're a Trappist monk, this is very significant for you, because they get up in the middle of the night and they sing and welcome the day. And then at nighttime, they go to sleep. And when they go to sleep, they think that what they're doing is entering into death, and that they will arise again in the morning. See, in other words, they make a mystical kind of apprehension of these matters. Then I'm going to go down to next verse 11. In an upright land says, these people do not see the majesty of the Lord. The wicked, when spared, do not learn justice. Oh, what a terrible thing to have. It's just at the very end of this beautiful reportage, we have this sad event of the majesty of the Lord is trampled on. And so that gets a C, that's a conflict. But it's also heaven. Why? Because when do we see the majesty of the Lord? Certainly not at a bus stop or at a congregation or something like that. We see the majesty of the Lord when we are invited into heaven. And so when Isaiah had a vision in heaven, that's what he did. He saw the heavenly kingdom. Paul said he was taken up to heaven at one time, but he doesn't get into it. I think it's too overwhelming. But these people don't see it. I'm doing, see how I put a bracket there? All the way down there is kind of like a combat back and forth about the people of Israel who don't catch this and people who do. Okay, Lord, you will give us peace. Okay, now that's page 6. And so I'm going to turn that page. Now I'm going to go to page 7. Okay, page 7. And you'll notice I go all the way down to the bottom before I start to make any kind of commentary. And I start with verse 21. Now remember, this first book of Isaiah goes from chapter 1 to chapter 39. See, the Lord goes forth from his place to punish the wickedness of the earth's inhabitants. The earth will reveal the blood shed upon it. So I put a C down for that. That's true, isn't it? This is a conflict. This is a lack of faith among these people. It says, and no longer conceal the slain. And now we get to chapter 35. And you can see quite a bit of notes here because this is a beautiful rendition. Here's what's happening. There is, in chapter 35, I believe, that's why I put my opinion, that this is a later addition to Isaiah because it talks about the beautiful journey back home from Babylon. But wait a minute, we haven't really got into Babylon yet, have we? So what I'm saying is when they composed the book, and this might cause some confusion, but I'll just go along with it to tell you, somewhere between 200 and 300 is when this book of Isaiah gets its final edition. You're saying, wait a minute, I thought this was 700 BC. That's correct. That's the event of 700 BC is the Assyrian invasion. 587 is the invasion by the Babylonians who beat up the Assyrians. Eventually the Persians are going to beat up the Babylonians. That's a different story. So am I going to make some sense here? So what happens is the authors later on, centuries later, say this talk about how terrible we were to have the Assyrians come in and take us over, and then later on to have the Babylonian captivity. I think we need a break. So give us a nice story instead. How do we do this in Advent? We have a Sunday in Advent, don't we? Instead of wearing purple, we wear pink. Well, at least Father Mike does. That's his vestment. I don't have one. So anyway, then no, don't tell him that. I want a place to live at night. So anyway, then in Lent we do the same thing, don't we? 5 weeks into Lent we put on, and again, it's an anticipation. In other words, it's like we know there's suffering and penitence and all that stuff going on, but but look at the long range picture. Well, this is the long range picture. So I've said enough about that. So let's get into it. You're going to find this is wonderful poetry. Poetry meaning that you're using actual physical, visible, tangible elements to declare the spirituality of the loving God who takes care of us. So listen to this. Israel's deliverance. The wilderness and the parched land. Now the wilderness means there's no life of organized life. The parched land means there's no crops. And so we're talking about like a moonscape. It will exult. The Arabah, which is like a steppe, which is like a flatland, will rejoice and bloom. So wait a minute. Now, I have to tell you, I wish I had the picture of this. In Chile, there is a landscape that goes up into the mountains. So it starts here on the flatland and goes up into the mountains like this. Okay, you got me? And one day it is just gray, nothing there. And the next day, because the slight mist came down and stuff like that, it is all like an orange, light red. The entire valley and flowers going all the way up. You're saying, where'd that come from? And it's beautiful. So instead of going to a landscape that is like sandpaper, you got a landscape that's like a soft kiss on the cheek. This is just absolutely beautiful. So then the crocus shall bloom abundantly. Rejoice with joyful song. The glory of Lebanon. See, they're famous for their trees. The temple had, the inner portion of the temple was made out of cedar, covered with gold. The splendor of Carmel. Hey, there you go, advertisement, right there. Carmel in Hebrew means garden, and it's a big mountaintop, and it is beautiful. And Sharon, which is the coastland just south of there, as you walk along the Mediterranean going south from Mount Carmel, you'll see this beautiful landscape there with beautiful flowers and a lot of the moisture. See, gets in there, the wind gets in and the moisture, and so you get a soft breeze coming all the time. And then they will see the glory of the Lord. That comes from Psalm 96. See the glory of the Lord. That's ultimate vision of God. So I put an H there. That's it. Put an H there. This is a heavenly thing. You're going to see God's glory. Strengthen the hands that are feeble. Make firm the knees that are weak. Say to the fearful of heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. He comes with vindication, with divine recompense. He comes to save you. The eyes of the blind will see. The deaf will be opened. Their ears opened. The lame shall leap like a stag. The mute tongue will sing for joy. Waters will birth forth in the wilderness. Streams in the Arabah. Burning sands will become pools. This just gets better all the way along. So what is happening is you are going to take a road. Now, if you took a road from Babylon, you'd have to go north because you come back down, all the way back down to the bottom. Now, remember, this is a later addition to put into this part here. It'd be like an 800-mile journey. That's quite a distance. And so what you're going to have, though, is not kind of like you have to go up and down and up and down and up and down. You can have flat land. It's just, there will be valleys will be filled in and mountains leveled off. So the pride that you have, which is your mountain, that's leveled off. The desperation that you have, which is your illness and collapse, that'll be filled in. So you have a smooth road. Well, what happens when kings come along? What happens when Jesus came along on a mule? That you place down cloaks in front of them so that the donkeys walk on, a precious garment instead of just walking on dirt. So that's why I put there all this stuff about H. Now you might not recognize some of these things. Well, first of all, it says, "Be strong, do not fear." I put down the John Paul II. Remember that was the first thing he said. I remember what happened when he came out on the edge of the Vatican there, the right to the right of the St. Peter's Church. You had the open window, and they had it set up, and they saw this white smoke coming up, so they knew that something like happening. So they said, "And here is your new Pope, Cardinal Wojtyla." And everybody said, "Who? Who's that? Where did he come from?" Remember, the first was John Paul I, and he was an Italian, which is supposed to be an inheritance. So anyway, and he died. He forgot to tell, and didn't forget to tell. He had a heart condition. His heart condition was severe, and they didn't check on that. So they make him Pope, and then 31 days later, he dies of a heart attack. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, wow, is right. Andrew Greeley, who didn't get along too well with Cardinal Cody, said when the Pope John Paul I died, he had in his hand a report on the financial corruption of the Chicago Archdiocese. Now that wasn't true, but you know how Chicago goes. That's a good story. So anyway, he went after him. He said he gave the money to his aunt, who was from St. Louis. So anyway. Andrew Greeley. What do you do about Andrew Greeley? You can't throw him out because he's already kind of out, So, by the way, he's a friend of mine. So before he died. So anyway, so when John Paul II came out, that's the first thing he said was, "Do not be afraid," not of himself, but just do not fear. That was the message of the scripture for him. Now, notice down below here with all these people, the blind and the deaf and all those. What I did, and I go over to the right-hand side to see the right column says miracles of Jesus ! In Matthew. This is found in chapter 8 and chapter 9 in Matthew. What he does there is in chapters 5, 6, and 7, he gives you the Sermon on the Mount. And then in chapters 8 and 9, he coalesces together 9 miracles, 3 sets of 3. The Bible people like threes. So you have a first set of miracles, 3 of them. A second set of miracles, 3 of them. A third set of miracles, 3 of them. What are these miracles? Well, the blind can see. The lame can walk. The leper is cured. The deaf man is cured. A dead girl is raised to life. So do you see what's happening here? Is the way Matthew organizes this thing is, you say, oh, he didn't do that deliberately. Matthew loved the Old Testament. He wanted to show that the Old Testament found its completion in Jesus. So every chance he got, he would identify things in the Old Testament that pointed to things in the New Testament. And that's exactly what you get here, is stuff in the New Testament, fulfilling all these things. That's why I love that passage so much. And now we turn the page, and we get to the backside. And it says, we enter Zion singing. Now, I've done this several times. When you go to Jerusalem, especially if you're with a group, they will have a leader. And that leader, when you get to the edge of the city, will sing out the first verse of a song. And then everybody sings in together. We just had that the other day in one of our Psalms at Mass. It says, I say we enter Jerusalem joyfully. And then somebody behind him says, and with songs of joy, we sing, So it's like the tour guide leading you in. Then we come to chapter 38. And it says, go from verse 9 down to verse 20. And the whole thing here is about Hezekiah. And what happens with Hezekiah is he's dying. And when you die, you die. Now he's going to be saved. So what does that indicate to you, the reader? From the New Testament perspective, you say, oh, well, he went through death, but he was raised up to life. Jesus is doing that all the time, isn't he? Go to Mark chapter 1 there. He comes into Peter's mother-in-law, and what does he do? She's ill. She's frail. She's ill. What does that mean? She's ill with humanity, the ills of humanity and all its desperation. And Jesus takes her by the hand. What does he do? The word is the word of resurrection. He raises her up. See? The little girl who's in a deathbed, he raises her up. See? So what's happening here is that we're getting an indication of that with Hezekiah. He's flat dead, moments away from dying, and he's bemoaning the fact he doesn't want to leave this world. He doesn't believe in an afterworld. They don't at those times. It's 700 BC, and so. But now what happens is he's raised up by God. So I think this all fits together. So I put that down there. He says, and read along with me. He says he was ill in 702 BC, and then he died in 687. So in 702 he's brought back to life. And in 687, he is allowed to die. I don't know if you know this or not. It's very quiet. They don't talk much about it. Mm-hmm. Pius XII, in the middle 50s, was very ill. After the Second World War, just took it out of him. And he asked God to die. And God appeared to him. Jesus appeared to him. Jesus the Lord. It's rare. We have visions of Mary, but Jesus appeared to him and said, I need you. And sure enough, he got like 3 more years of life. Then smoothed over things as the 50s kind of took away. Everything settled down in Europe and in the United States. And so anyway, so these things happen. So just look at the things I underline. He says, in the noontime of life. See, I put down a B for that because there's a song that way we have. In the morning of life, I will be true. In the noontime of life, I will be true and faithful. In the evening of life, will he be truthful and faithful. It's based on a poem by John of the Cross. It's in our songbook. Then he says, to the gates of Sheol, I've been consigned. Oh no. You see, he's not going to get a full time of life because he's going to die at noon. And then he's going to go to Sheol. I put down there, not a nice place. But he has this faith in the Lord. See, he says, I shall see the Lord no more. In temple services in the land of the living. He's crying about this. He's mortal. He's like a shepherd's tent, where shepherds in those days, they could take a tent down, and because it's all goat skins and stuff, they can pack the camel away in a matter of 20 minutes. You can have your whole house torn down, your big tent with all the stuff that goes in it, and all put onto saddles and out of there. And then my life is like a weaver who makes the final sewing thing, and what does he do? Cuts the thread. These are images. So what happens though is, go down to verse 15. He says, Lord, I am overwhelmed. Go security for me. What am I to say or tell him? He's the one who has done it. All my sleep is fled because of the bitterness of my soul. Those who live with the Lord protects. Yours is the life of my spirit. You give me health and restored my life. Peace in place of bitterness. So he said, how can I thank the Lord? Because He has brought me back to life when all that I had as the moments of my life ebbed away was bitterness. Okay. Do you realize that we've gone almost a full hour here?
Went fast.
Yeah. Wow. It went by fast.
Mhm.
Now that see, that reminds you in the weeks to come. What you got to do is get one of those headbands, you know, when they go out and play tennis or something like that, you know. And then you got to have some fluid. You got to have some fluids with you. I'm not talking about gin and tonic. I'm talking about some
Gatorade.
some Gatorade. There you go. That's you know. So I came back from Israel one time. We were at Cana, and so they have wine there, you know, from Cana, you know, the wine. Okay, Cana. So anyway, they run out of it, and Jesus makes a lot of it. So they had these bottles of wine. I think they cost like $1.25, and it had a sticker on it, Cana. So I packed it in my bags. Well, when you get to the airport, the Israelis never have proper airlines because they're so careful. So they open everything up. So they open up all my luggage, and I could see the one guy to tell the other guy, "Hey, look at this! You know, another one of those cheap tourists, got suckered into buying a bucket of quart of wine when he could have delicious caramel wine or something." So yeah, make fun of me, sure, you know. So okay, so anyway, now that's so now we're on page 9. In page 9, we'll leave a little bit of time here to take an introduction to next week's material because I want to start pushing these things together, and then secondly, I want to see if you have any questions and stuff. Okay, so Emiliana's on the phone. She's got a call. Okay, so let's continue here. We're on chapter 55. Now, 55 then is the kind of like the last chapter. We're going to do 56 as well, but oh my goodness, we might not have extra time. Let's take a look at 55. An invitation to grace. All you who are thirsty, come to the water. Where have we heard that before? So that verb to be, the Samaritan woman. Then down below it says, why spend your money for what is not bread, your wages? In other words, why give yourself over to the secular world when you can have divine food? This is kind of a hint of the Eucharist to come. Now we're on the upper right-hand side. I will make with you an everlasting covenant. Loyal. I made him a witness to people, a leader and commander of peoples. You shall summon. So shall you summon a nation you knew not, and a nation you knew not shall run to you. See, what they're doing here is I put on the column, salvation is freely extended. The book of Isaiah will have great influence among the Jews and among the Catholics. The Catholics at the Vatican Council came up with a document on what is the function of the church. And it was this passage, you are to be a light to the nations. Lumen Gentium, lumen, a light to the nations. And that's how the Jews felt about themselves. What we are to do is to become a holy people, and then we are to expand our beauty to the world. It doesn't work that way, but that's what their goal is. That's what the Catholic Church should be doing. Lumen Gentium is our activity as the church should be to be a sign to the world that love and charity and adoration and the union with the divine is possible. So, and then he's got the Holy One of Israel who has glorified you. See, that this is all H stuff. H for heavenly. And then down below, there's a beautiful passage about, it's just poetry. In fact, I say that's sheer poetry. And it's about the earth, the rain coming down upon the earth and the snow coming down upon the earth, more appropriate for today. See, and then it stays there. And what does it do? It nourishes, whether it's in the wintertime or the summertime, it nourishes the ground. And then from the ground grows up a flower. See, how can you imagine a little tiny acorn that's this size here can grow to be like a 10-story tall oak tree, a big, huge, expanded, wider than you can embrace it around with your arms. How does all that happen? you know, that this minute thing. Well, think of the birth of a child, the embryo. The scientists will tell you that that embryo, the connection of the embryo's elements, have made that a part of the class Homo sapiens. In other words, it's not going to become a frog or a tree. It's going to be it is a human being. So it is a Homo sapiens. If you asked what it is, that's what it would be. If you have a Christian, what it would be, or a believer, what it would be, say it is a child of God. But there you would have that this would be, you know, the foundational element. You say, well, yeah, but how can that be a, like Steinberg made fun of that sometimes the other day. He says, yeah, he says, you know, those Catholics, they're worried about a little bean in the body, you know, a little bean, you know, so it's nothing. Well, that bean, I would hate to say to him, it was you once. You were that bean, and now here you are.
Right.
And I would not use any foul language. That's beyond me. I might write it down and throw it in the fire, but I won't, sully the world with it. So, but look at how beautiful this poetry is. A great friend died. We spent time in Israel together. He was a biblical scholar of great proportions. His name was Karel Stumiller. And you could not find a holier person. And just the absolute characteristic of what it is to be a full human being. And he died. And he died in the wintertime. And the snow came down the day of his funeral to be about 2 feet deep. So the whole city of Chicago was shut down. So I came from Mundelein and I drove down. It took me 2 hours to get. But they had delayed the funeral by 2 hours because the buses from Chicago, from Catholic Theological Union in Hyde Park, it took them 2 hours to get out to this. And it was right at the end of the Kennedy. There's a Passionist parish there. So we came in, and sure enough, what did they read? But because he loved this passage, just as from the heavens the rain and snow come down and do not return till they watered the earth, making it fertile and fruitful, giving seed to the one who sows, bread to the one who eats. So anyway, so here is his favorite passage on his funeral day when we're covered with snow. This is no like hint of snow or like a little mist or something like that. It was covered with snow. I went out and I kind of had to look and find my car. I couldn't find it, so I took the Cadillac. So anyway, okay, so yeah, not bad. So there we go. Now let's go to chapter 56 on the backside. Now this actually is the beginning of the third book, but we had a back page that was open, so I'm just going to take this passage here because it continues the theme on chapter 56. There's page 10 in the upper right corner. It finishes the theme of a universal mission of the church. It says, the foreigner joined to the Lord should not say, the Lord will surely exclude me from this people. That's verse 3. See, we're only doing underlying things. So I put down there both J and B, because don't we have a hymn that says that we are welcome in this place? Surely the Lord is present in this place. That's for all of us. So it says, better than sons and daughters, an eternal name which shall not be cut off will I give them. To the foreigners, to the name of the Lord, to become his servant. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Where do we hear that? Oh my goodness, that's another Jesus comment. Where do we hear that? This, you have made the house of the Lord is supposed to be a house of prayer, and you have made it into
a den of thieves.
A commercial money exchanging empire. Remember in Jesus in John's Gospel, and yeah, you have made it so anyway. And then finally he has down there below, I have an H down there, my house shall be called a house of prayer, who gathers the dispersed of Israel. I will gather them besides those already gathered. So universal redemption. Now, we have finished that page. And I believe we will be able to get to chapter 40. Isn't chapter 40 the next thing that you see in your pagination there? Yes.
I haven't picked up my paper stuff yet. I've got to get it.
Oh, well, here, I'll put your hand through the screen and I'll hand it to you here. There you go. Oh, it didn't work. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to see I saved chapter 40. You know, we're finished with Isaiah, you think, but chapter 40 is so sacred that I saved it as something to its own.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you have a Bible in front of you or not. You could just look at chapter 40 and you can see this.
No, I don't. Mm-mm.
Yeah, but it's in our, and by the way, there's a late fee. You pick your stuff up
Good
late.
try.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, you just
Already paid.
write it out. The check you write out is to the priest vacation fund. Okay. You think that the P stands for printing. No, well, you know, this is so anyway. No, we have it for you here. It's all set for you. Just stop in.
Yeah, I have to come pick it up. Mhm.
Yeah, any day it's right here.
Okay.
As you know, Stephanie puts all this stuff together. She did a fabulous job in putting our materials together here. So this is terrific.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any other famous women from Notre Dame that are in the news these days. But we have two Notre Dame women here. So now here we are in chapter 40, the promise of salvation. Look at all the comments I have here. Because of the fact that this book is the introductory chapter to the book of consolation, the book of comfort. If you play Handel's Messiah, either at Christmas time or you play it at the Lenten time, you're going to find a song that will be in, a cappella, comfort, give comfort to my people. Well, that's how the opening line comes here. So we have heard this. Have you ever heard Handel's Messiah? Comfort, give comfort to my people. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem. Her guilt is expiated. So that now is the theme of this entire chapter, is that all the things that you have done to hurt the Lord is willing to overlook if you return to him with love. I'll just say that again. It seems like the Lord God can handle our stupidity, ignorance, sinfulness, lack of heart, and other type things, as long as we come to some conscious understanding that the Lord is God. So see what he says? Her guilt is expiated. She has received from the hand of the Lord double for all her sins. By double, it means mercy. In other words, you've not just been merciful and said, and pat you on the back, but it's a mercy, and they pat you on the back and give you a big hug. So it says, a voice cries out in the desert, prepare the way of the Lord. Oh, have you ever heard that before? Prepare a way of the Lord, make straight in the wasteland a highway for our God. You see, that comes right from Isaiah 35, which is applied to John the Baptist in the Gospel of John. I should say the Synoptic Gospels. The Gospel of Luke especially. Every valley shall be filled in, every mountain and hill shall be made low. See, our emptiness is satisfied and our pride is reduced. Similar to chapter 35. The rugged land shall be made a plain, the rough country a broad valley. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. All humankind shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Voice cries out, said, what shall I cry out? All mankind is like grass. Grass withers and goes. However, look at what's underlined there. This is an H. Heaven. The word of our God stands forever. See, why do I put that in heaven? Well, because if it's the word of God, there's something of God and it will last forever. It's got to be a place for it. So go to the high mountains, cry at the top of your voice, Jerusalem, herald of good news. See, from the housetops, this is found in Luke's gospel. He says the exact same thing. Share your faith, go to the rooftops. Now we're on the right-hand side. Fear not, cry not. Here comes your Lord with power. Like a shepherd, he feeds his flock. In his arms, he gathers the lambs, carrying them in his bosom, leading the ewes with care. This is John, the Gospel of John, chapter 10. The loving kindness of Jesus. And then it says the power of the Creator to save his people. He says he marked off the heavens, and then he goes into a kind of a long song of praise to himself. And down at the bottom there in verse 18, it says, to whom can you liken God? And then he gives you a falseness. And that's why I put a C down there. An idol cast by a craftsman. Is that God? Mulberry wood, the choice portion which a skilled craftsman picks out for himself. Is that God to make a statue out of that or a carving? Choosing timber that will not rot. Is that a God? None of this is God. So if I turn the page sideways, I say this. Two things. One is sheer poetry. The other is a source of intellectualism. In other words, wisdom. And the third thing I've has, I go down to the bottom there. Beauty is a perfect parallel to divinity. In other words, if you wanted to have one word to capture the essence of God, you would use the word beauty. Plato decided that there are four great universals: the good, the true, the whole, and beauty. So now I'm on the back side, which is page 12, so you can turn that over. And you get some more of this H material, this heaven material. One man helps another, one says to another, keep on. See, God's presence is found in community. But go down to the verse 22. He sits enthroned upon the vault of the earth. Its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, stretches out the heavens like a veil, spreads them like a tent. This sounds like the book of Job, where he's telling him all the good things he did. Lift up your eyes on high. See who has created these things. I love these things when they talk about nature, because when you find out about nature, I talked about this on Sunday with the trees, because when the weather changes, what it does is it turns off their chlorophyll. And so the upper layer of green kind of evaporates, and the lower level of the colors of gold and orange and red come through. And then when it's time for the leaf to break off, this is almost like there's a consciousness to it. Then the enzymes inside the tree that make a snap, and the leaf falls off. So you say, well, sometimes it blows off. That's true, but then it falls off. And then what the tree does is it seals that with a little sap, a little weaving there, to wait for the springtime, because from there will come the next branch of beauty, of flowers and leaves. And then finally, you can see it says, the Lord is the eternal God, creator of the heavens and the earth. Says the last verse, they shall hope in the Lord, will renew their strength. They will soar as with eagle's wings. They will run and not grow weary, walk and not grow faint. Now that eagle's wings is often told, and this is not the only place it is, but here you can say, oh yeah, we have a whole song to that about eagle's wings. Mm-hmm. So Stephanie, what do you think? Do you think we should open up a conversation with everybody here? And how do we do that? Just have them hit in the lower corner? Was it lower right-hand corner? They hit the little red button or something?
Or if they want to put it in the chat.
How do you do that?
They would just hit the kind of like speech looking bubble.
Oh yeah, you see.
You can read it there.
Yeah.
If you want to ask any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves.
Okay, how do I do that? Oh, I do. How do I do that? I'm already. Where am I at?
You're already on.
Oh, I'm on top. Yes, so I'm already unleashed. Yeah, I have to be. And there's a chat thing down below. Do you ever see? The rest of you see a chat thing right down in the middle on the bottom row of things?
Nope.
If you take your arrow and you go down to the center, a row of whatever they are, opportunities, and it says chat.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you hit that, take your arrow and go right down the middle of the screen, and you'll see a thing there called chat.
But I don't want to chat.
Yeah, if you hit that, then we can talk.
Yeah. So if Father God's ever talking and you have a question, you can always type a question in, and he can read it. Or he can.
You can talk just now because you have audio on.
But
Well, you know what? I don't get any questions for anybody, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the articles that we had associated with this chapter. Okay. You know, if you're finished with, you should have this. Do you see this? Mass Exodus.
Got it.
Okay. Because you can see what I do is with each one of these chapters, I take some material that I might have on my desk or something like that. That might possibly be a reinforcement of some of the things that we're talking about. It's not meant to be a commentary on what we're talking about. It's supposed to be something from our world and our time. And so the first thing it says is mass exodus. Now this article is written by a parishioner from next door at St. Isaac Jogues Parish up in Hinsdale. And you can see there it says a parishioner at St. Isaac Jogues. He's a lawyer, a downtown lawyer. And he sent this letter. He's got two brothers who are lawyers too, and his father's a lawyer. So, and his daughter's a lawyer, and so it kind of runs in the family. Yeah, and they're very devout. The Verdolik, the family, the mom and the dad. You know, he's in the paper a lot, but they've been lifelong daily mass attenders. They have a church over on the southeast side of Chicago, Sacred Heart. Is kind of a Croatian neighborhood at one time. Now it's a mixed neighborhood, but they go to mass every day. In fact, sometimes he will go to that mass and she will go to the one at the next parish over because it's a little bit later. But they attend mass every day, so, and they have, So anyway, and their kids are like that too. Now, what he does is he writes this article on mass exodus. By mass, he means the sacred liturgy. He says it's the holiest act of religion. You can't do anything to glorify God more nor profit your soul more than by devoutly assisting at it, and assisting as often as possible. Now, as you start to read into this article, and it's very literate and very knowledgeable, but what he does is he says, the reason why we're having such a difficulty in holding on to our younger generation is because we do not understand the Mass well enough. He said, if you take, and we had an article about nuns before this, but we are losing. I can't tell you how many times I hear from families said, well, we have 4 grown children and, and none of them are participate in religious activity. Kids aren't baptized and they just don't care about it because they got their life to live. And they say, all you have to do is be good and, and God will take care of us. And don't worry about it, if there is a God. So, his statement is that we don't understand what the Eucharist is. If we did understand that the Eucharist is something beyond just a homily or a sermon or something like that, like they might have in other churches, and is something quite different. It is an actual consecration. It's an actual presence of the divine in our midst. He says, if you ask people nowadays, Catholics, of course, when they say Catholics, they're talking about several brands of Catholics. It's not like the daily communicant or the Sunday communicants or whatever who are faithful to the Mass. They're talking about all Catholics, and they say 70% of them say that's just a symbol. It has nothing to do with the reality of the body and blood of Christ. So his point is, if we knew more about the Mass and its source of power, we would be much more attentive to our religious life. He says, perhaps the reason why our culture has the highest rates of drug use, depression, anxiety, emptiness, and isolation, or the rates of suicide have skyrocketed by 30% is because too few knowingly and worthily receive the Eucharist, so they have no divine life within us. That's a little bit strong to say they have no divine life in us, but they don't have the divine. So then the next page, he says, what is the Mass all about? And he goes into, he's very learned, and look at this, he goes on page after page. He says, and this, I believe this might have appeared in their bulletin. And if I can say so, I think it was addressed to the bishop when they closed down, or the cardinal, when they closed down all the churches, said you can't come into church, for a safety measure. And some people saw that as a statement of that they didn't appreciate our religious faith enough. In other words, the real healing can come from our faith. But how do you do that? We, for example, applied, but we followed the rules exactly. And we came up with a number, and the diocese sent us back and said, you can let 350 people attend your services on Sunday, which is quite a number. Other churches, it started out as 25, or, if funerals were like 10 and other things like that. So it was a tough time. They really shut everything down. It was supposed to be shut down for a couple of weeks and then, to kind of break the back of it. And then they would open it up again. But anyway, so we have that. And so when we have like our daily Mass, we have maybe 80 people there, but they're spread out all over the place. Well, they're still spread out for the 8:15 or the 5:30 or the 10 o'clock or the 12 o'clock Mass. There's still plenty of room, So we could have more people attending those Masses as a rule, but we haven't. But I'm not making any judgments about anything. I'm just, we have to talk fact. This virus has affected on us more levels. They say all the levels of psychological impairment are there. Depression and all that. So anyway, the reason I have these kind of articles is this talk about Isaiah is talking about 2 periods in their life that lasted for decades upon decades of people rejecting God in their life. And so here we have something that's happening in our own culture, in our own times, in our own families. And so what do you do with that? You know, it's not, I don't want to start any kind of argument about anything. I'm not doing it. I'm just trying to say that these are facts. Sometimes we don't face up to the facts, then we do, people get angry. The next thing was this sister. I found this intriguing. Now, this was not intended to be political, but she was at one of the political conventions. And her message was one of right to life. But she has an interesting background. She's a religious sister, and she is a colonel in the Army, and she spent 30 years as a doctor in the Mideast, fixing up soldiers who have been hurt in the various wars that we fought. They're starting with Kuwait and Iraq and all those other places. So kind of an interesting background. When they say yes to sister, I tell you, I'd say yes, sister. I don't want any kind of give me 50 or something like that, push-ups. So, but anyway, she had a beautiful thing. Because what she says, I'm not just pro-life, I'm pro-eternal life. I want us all to end up in heaven. And she had in her hand for the good part of her time, says, here's the way we can do it. She's really addressing a Catholic, but they gave her a status at the convention. And she said, prayer is the way for us, you know, to handle these crisis situations. So she was saying that. So she said, praying the rosary is but you know, that's for Catholics, but she really, that was her message, that, you know, if we commit ourselves to having a kind of an attitude of prayerfulness, that God is with us in this and walks with us, you know, we might have a better sense of spiritual and psychological health. So after each one of these chapters, I have one or two or three articles. Some of those coming up, I wrote one myself about a family that had lost two of their children to epilepsy. Another one where a mother and her husband were with their son, infant son, 5 or 6 years old when he died. He knew he was going to die of leukemia, so there's no hope for him. So those type of things, you know, what I try to do is connect things of our life with what we're going on with this book. After we get done with this, you know, then we're going to get into other materials, and we're eventually going to hit 13 books in just one fashion or another, but it's going to go quick. And then we will get into some theology before Christmas time, and the scriptures, the Catholic scripture, you know, the letters of Paul and the Gospels. So anyway, well, with that, I'm going to say goodbye. So you can hit the leave, is that where you hit? Or end. End is another one. When I went to put on end here, it said eternal life. What do they mean by that?
Thank you, Father Bob.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Father Bob. See you next week.
Yeah,
Father Bob. Good night.
you're welcome.
Night.
I do enjoy being with you. So.
It's very nice. Thank